Hello, welcome back to Ink and Imagination. I'm Craig Cruz, author and poet, and today we're going to continue reading a chapter from MUSSOPO and His Great Adventure. Just remember, anyone can be a writer. It just takes a little imagination. Let's get started. Chapter 2, The Great Escape. Hours had passed, and it was now early morning, but darkness still hung so thick that it could almost be felt. One attempt after another, and the latch to the cage was finally open. His long tail, with its agility, was finally able to overcome this great obstacle that had been such trouble to him. There, he grunted, as the door swung open wide. He was finally free. MUSSOPO quietly observed the rat's cage. He saw the young female rat. She was huddled in a corner, sleeping. He quietly woke her. She seemed scared as she awoke. He turned his attention to the other rats. They were awake but oblivious to him being free. Their attention lay with the metal bars that they were still chewing on. MUSSOPO's attention returned to the female rat. "Are you Star?" MUSSOPO asked the young rat. "Star?" she questioned. MUSSOPO looked to the mirrored wall that stood tall opposite the row of cages and pointed to a sign that hung overhead. "My name is MUSSOPO, as it says over my cage. Yours must be Star, and I am happy to properly introduce myself to you." The young rat looked confused. "That is a reflection in the mirror, and the sign says rats over my cage and opossum over yours. You are merely seeing a reflection of the words, so that is not art." Star was interrupted by the other rats, and MUSSOPO thought that she seemed a little long-winded about the names and was losing interest anyway. "So you finally made it out of your cage," the three rats seemed to hiss at him. "Yes, I'm going on a long journey home," MUSSOPO said, trying to sound sure of himself. "Why don't you let us out of the cage?" they pleaded. "We want to wreak havoc in this place. We see lots of things that we can destroy in here." They smiled at MUSSOPO, speaking in unison. "Why would you want to tear things up here? It is a beautiful place, and the keepers are very nice and feed us, and the children come and—" MUSSOPO was interrupted by the rats as they pushed towards MUSSOPO against the wall of the cage. "You better open this cage or we will hurt your little friend here," they hissed again, while looking toward Star. MUSSOPO knew that he had to think quickly. He quietly told Star to stay where she was, and then loudly told the other rats to move to the far side of the cage. They quickly did as they were told, excited to soon be released from the cage. As he held the three mean rats' attention by continuing to give them instructions, behind his back he used his tail to undo the latch to the door of the cage. He calmly told Star to step out of the cage, and as the other rats noticed her exit, they jumped for the door as well. MUSSOPO's quick tail dropped the latch in place, and the three rats landed in a pile in front of the door. "Let us out of here," they demanded. MUSSOPO, in a caring tone, apologized to them and told them that he couldn't bear to see them tear up such a beautiful place, nor could he trust someone that threatened his new friend. MUSSOPO and Star turned to start their adventure, and the rats became angrier. Hanging from the inside of the cage, they hurled insults and promised revenge on both of them. The two new friends hurried off the table and past numerous animals in their pens. Most of them were sound asleep. The sheep were snug together in their wool coats. The goats likewise were curled together, oblivious to anything around them. The rabbits were awake as they passed and were curious as to what a rat and an opossum were doing out of their cages. MUSSOPO stopped to explain and offered to let them out so that they could join them on their journey, but the rabbits declined, saying that they enjoyed their home and were not eager to leave the safety of the barn. MUSSOPO began to worry after they had moved past the rabbits because they could not find a way out of the barn. They did find one small hole in which Star could fit, but MUSSOPO could not. As they looked and searched, they could tell it was beginning to become daylight outside. They were afraid that the keepers would come soon and find them and put them back in their cages. "Star, you should squeeze out the hole that we found and go without me," MUSSOPO urged her. "Where would I go? I have no family, no one that cares for me. You seem to be the only one that cares for me," she insisted. "But if you get caught and you are put back in that cage, those other rats will destroy you. You must escape, with or without me," MUSSOPO continued. "At least go out and hide and wait for me until I can get there." "But I'm very scared to go alone, and where will I go, and how will you find me?" She started to cry. "Can you climb a tree?" he asked. "Yes." "Find the prettiest tree outside of the borders of this place, to the east. Climb as high as you can and wait. I will find you, I promise." As they stood at the small hole, they heard the barn doors opening as the keepers were coming to work. She climbed into the hole, trusting her friend. As he turned to hide, her head poked back through the opening. "Which way is east?" she asked through tears. Musapo pointed, having a perfect sense of direction, as she disappeared through the hole again. He quickly looked around, searching for a place to hide, when he heard a deep voice from overhead fill his ears. "I couldn't help but overhear your plight, young possum," a tall, distinguished horse said. "I know of a place that you can hide that the keepers rarely go. Do you see the large loft overhead?" The horse looked up and to the left. "You better hurry. They normally come and tend to me first, and I hear footsteps now." Musapo quietly thanked him and hurried for the tall ladder that led into the loft. He disappeared into the dark shadows of a large room overlooking all the other animals. He found a window on the east side of the building and peered out of it, hoping to see his friend. He didn't see her, which didn't surprise him because she was a small rat. What he did notice is that there were no trees that he could see to the east. Musapo began to worry about his little friend as he remembered his promise to find her. Star was very scared once she made it out of the barn. She was much more confident when she had her new friend by her side. She wished she had stayed with him. Some of the keepers were already busy feeding the animals and filling their water troughs. She worked diligently, staying out of sight of any of the keepers. She finally made it to the edge of the property, in the direction that Musapo told her to go. She scurried under the fence, out into an open field, but was shocked to see that there were not any trees close by, at least none that she could see to the east. She stopped. She felt very small in the vast field of tall grass that lay before her, and thought for a while about what she should do. In the distance, she could see something black sticking up over the grass. She thought to herself that although this wasn't a tree, that it was the only thing that she could see to the east that might be a suitable meeting place for Musapo if he had not been captured by the keepers. Star made her way across the wide open field toward the object that she had seen. It was slow going, but the sun was shining brightly, and the warmth felt good upon her back and neck as she walked. At about the halfway point to her destination, the grass disappeared, and she found herself on a gravel road. She looked to her left, realizing that it was leading back to the barnyard, and then looked to the right and wondered what adventure might lie ahead. She was a timid rat and wished that she could go back to living in a cage and being fed by the keepers. She knew that she couldn't turn left as she remembered that the other rats had threatened to hurt her in anger toward Musapo. She quickly turned right and scurried down the road. While walking, she heard a loud clanking sound that was louder than thunder. She stopped. A big green truck roared toward her on the road. There was no time to get out of the way. She simply ducked down as low as she could into the gravel. She could taste the gray dust of the road as she took a deep breath and hoped that the massive truck tires wouldn't run her over. It didn't. The truck roared over her, dripping a dark blot of oil directly on her head as it passed. She was thankful that she was able to stay away from the big round tires, but wished she could have stayed away from the leaking oil. She hurried back into the grass on the opposite side of the road, toward the black shape that she had seen in the distance. As she hurried through the open field again, enjoying the sunshine, she found herself in the shade. She stopped. She knew that there were no trees or buildings close by, and thought to herself that it might start raining, for she must be beneath a cloud. Suddenly, she felt the talons of a large red-tailed hawk pick her up by her back and lift her into the air. Terrified, Star wiggled to get away from the grip, but it was firm as she raised higher and higher into the air. Star stopped wiggling to get loose because she was now so high in the sky that if she got loose, she feared she would not survive the fall. She tried to talk to the hawk. "Please, kind hawk with beautiful red tail feathers, would you be so kind as to let me down softly, for I have a possum friend that I must meet very soon." The Star decided that either the hawk couldn't understand rat or he wasn't interested in what she had to say. From this height, she could see many trees to the east. The hawk started to descend. She was hopeful that if she could get away from this hawk, that she would be able to find the prettiest tree. She could also see the black object that she had seen earlier and started to wiggle once again, thinking that at this height she could survive a fall. The hawk stretched its neck towards Star's face. Star thought this might be the end, and she may serve as lunch to this hungry hawk. But as the hawk smelled the black oil that had dropped onto the rat's head, he decided this wasn't a meal for him, and immediately released his hold, dropping the rat from his talons. Star landed with a plop on a soft spot of ground where some old hay had been mounded up at the edge of another fence line. Star was thankful for the soft landing and quickly looked for a place to hide in case the large bird had second thoughts about his choice to skip his meal. She saw the black object that she had seen earlier, just a few yards away, and realized that it was beside another roadway. This road was paved and there was a lot of fast-moving vehicles on it. The black object was on the same side of the road that she was on, so she was glad that she wouldn't have to cross the road. She hoped that it would be a place that she could hide and that MUSSOPO would find her. As she made her way to it, she was happy to see that it was wooden, although very square. She tested her claws on the wood to see if she could climb it, and she could. As she climbed a couple of feet, she got to a shiny black box that she had seen from far off. It was metal. She managed to climb to the front when at once something gave way and nearly tossed her into the road. But she held on and pulled herself into a small cave. She had inadvertently opened a small door. She reached her paw back around the door and pulled it back closed, ready to sleep in the dark cave. After a little while, she was asleep. Star was dreaming of being carried away by the great hawk when she was startled awake by a bright light from the door being slung open and some papers being thrown in on top of her. The door closed as fast as it had opened, and it was dark and quiet once again. Star appreciated the paper and at once began chewing and gnawing the paper, making herself a proper bed. Within minutes, she was comfortable and sound asleep, this time dreaming of a reunion with her friend MUSSOPO. Thank you for listening to this chapter of MUSSOPO and His Great Adventure. Until the next chapter, keep imagining and pick up a pen. The next story could be yours.